Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our first ever ACG Watch Party. We are going to have some fun tonight. We're going to see an amazing show, and we're going to talk about it before we see it, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit more after it. My name is Matt Hinsley. I am Executive Director of Austin Classical Guitar, and from all of us here at ACG, I hope that you and your loved ones are safe and are healthy and are finding reasons to smile every day. We hope very much that this will be one of those reasons and something that will bring you some joy. We're very excited to share something special with you tonight, something that was born here in Austin, created here in Austin, and is now something that we'll be able to share with people all around the world because KLRU, our beloved PBS station, turned it into the wonderful television feature that we are going to watch with you tonight. So this is a YouTube experience, of course, and so I'd like to tell you just a few things about what's going to happen. Oliver Rajamani is with us, and I'll be introducing him in just a second, and we're going to talk for about the next 20 minutes. Then we're going to play the wonderful KLRU feature Flamenco India, which is about a 27-minute feature. And then after that feature plays, we'll be back, Oliver and I, to answer your questions. So you can put your questions, your comments, thoughts, anything you'd like to share with Oliver in particular in the chat function, which should be right over there on your YouTube screen if you're not into full screen mode already. And so you can type in your comments and questions as you want, and we'll get to those after the show when Joe Williams, our artistic director, comes on to read those questions to Oliver and I. So Oliver, can you believe that it was exactly 1 year ago today, April the 7th, that you performed with your amazing collaborators the show that turned into the TV show that we're about to share?
Yes, and I just realized that a couple of hours ago, actually, that this was the day that it happened.
Isn't that extraordinary? Well, I remember it very well. It was a wonderful day. It was the second of two shows that we did. That first one we were reminiscing had a lot of rain involved on that first day. But what a funny serendipity that we're doing this today, exactly 1 year later. Well, welcome, Oliver. It is just wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. It's a
So
pleasure.
we wanted to maybe just talk through a few things about this project and about the show before people watch it. I guess kind of to help folks crawl into the intent behind the production, learn a little bit about some of the music and some of the musicians and instruments and stuff. And I guess I wanted to start by asking you, Oliver, about the whole idea. This is Flamenco India, of course. We think of flamenco as being a quintessentially Spanish art form. Can you help us understand what the connection is between flamenco music and Spain and India, and kind of how this whole idea came about?
Well, when I say Flamenco India, most people think of it as a some sort of creative project or interesting fusion production or something like that. But even though it is, flamenco and India is a historical reality through a people, the Romani people, uh, through music and, and dance, and as well as culture. And and when I say people, we're talking about the Romani people. Now, most people don't have no clue who the Romani people are or where they even came from. Um, now, the term Romani is it's actually a language, and it is a spoken language, and it's a language that came out of India. And so when these group of people called the Romani people arrived in Europe in the late 14th century, the Europeans thought uh, didn't know who they were. They just thought they were from maybe Egypt. So that term Egyptian eventually turned into gypsy, and so they started calling them gypsies. But we know, today, and through language, through culture, through genetics, and all that, that the Roma originally came from India and they arrived in Europe. So, so through the people, flamenco is connected. And if you look at we talk about the dance and the music. If you look especially at the dance, for example, you'll see a lot of those Indian movements and even the footwork and all that, very, very similar to what Indian dance is. Um, Now, obviously, flamenco evolved in south of Spain, so this is not flamenco is not from India, but the roots are coming from India as well as the Middle East, because in s- in southern Spain, during that historic period, it was that region was full of people. It was kind of like um, melting pot of cultures and people. You had the Sephardic Jews, and the Sephardic Jews had their Sephardic music. The Arabs and the Moors had their, um, music, Middle Eastern and Berber music. And then you had the Spaniards who had their own folk songs. And then you had Roma, who or Gypsies, who had flamenco. And now flamenco is obviously has a lot of Arabic influence as well. You hear in the singing styles and some of the melodic styles and so forth. So it's there's a lot of influences there. But as far as the Indian aspect of it is concerned, you can see the Bhairavi scales, or ragas we call in India, which are very similar to what flamenco is based on, and the dance forms, and also the rhythmic structures are very similar to the way flamenco dance, and the breaks are structured. In Indian music, we have these things called tihais, um, and various compositions where the dancers um, do the swirls, and then they end their phrasing with their hands up, and you have that same thing where you have the yamada in flamenco music, which is that passionate ending of a phrase, and all the different footwork and everything. So yeah, so this is flamenco India. So their musical aspect, the cultural aspect also in many ways is there. Now when you go into the cultural aspect, um, now the Roma, when they arrived in Europe, they were persecuted so much, along with the Jews, and so a lot of them, especially they arrived during the Inquisition period, so they went and hid in the caves of Granada, um, those regions where uh, uh, flamenco evolved from, and uh, and when you look at for example, Cante Hundo, which is a very deep song they call in flamenco, you can hear very, very similar styles only found in India from the ancient traditions. There's one style called the Opari, which is exactly so similar to the Cante Hundo, which is sung as a gypsy style in Europe or in Spain. So um, and there are a lot of other cultural, like belief systems, which have also been transported through the Roma from India into Europe, whether it's religious belief systems or other systems such as male female situations and so forth. So all these have played a role in flamenco, and definitely the history of Spain. The Inquisition played a huge part in flamenco, and so this is what Flamenco India is all about. It's really showing the real history of the origins of the roots of the music and the culture of flamenco, which most people don't know about, because most people think of it as Spanish music, but the Spanish folk songs actually got added into flamenco much later, when the Spaniards started to accept flamenco as an art form, because it was only practiced by the gypsies or Romani people.
That is a wonderful overview, and what a lesson. And so while we see different different things come together in the performance, as you say, less of a fusion and more of an homage to the cultural connections between the art forms. And what a wonderful thing to look forward to that we'll get to experience here in a sec. The show itself, that is the TV show, is only a small part of the actual full production that y'all created a year ago. The other big featured character in this TV show is Jerónimo Maya. And of course, Jerónimo is a superb flamenco guitarist. I should say, I think this was his second trip to the United States, and we were very excited to get to collaborate with him. His first trip, as I understand, he was 11 or 12 years old, traveling with Paco de Lucia and playing in New York City and in Carnegie Hall, among other places. And just a wondrous talent. I wonder, in just like a minute or two, could you tell us a tiny bit about either Jerónimo or just how y'all met or something like that, what it was like to work with him?
Well, you know, known of Jerónimo for so long and listened to his music and watched videos of him and everything. And I was trying to record my Flamenco India CD a couple of years ago, which got released back in 2018. And I was really wanting to go to Spain to have this recorded. I mean, part of it got recorded in India, and the other part I wanted to do in Spain. So um, I actually sent an email through another friend to get in touch with Jerónimo and just letting him know what I was trying to do, and to see if he'd be interested to be involved in this. And wasn't sure really if I was gonna get a reply or not, but he actually responded and he was so excited. And then he kind of arranged everything for me to come there, and really took care of me while I was there, and we
He's
recorded.
such a sweet, sweet guy, and
Yeah,
I can see his face when you say that he got excited when you reached out to him, because he gets that way. He just gets excited about things that he's passionate about.
yeah, he's super. He's he gives you that big hug and all that. So it's he gets very, very extremely. Yeah, so it was a great experience working with him. And we connected in many different levels. It wasn't just about music.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think for him it was a lot about connecting back to his roots in India, and so that made it more meaningful for him. And
Beautiful.
so yeah, it was a very amazing experience overall.
I love it so much. Oliver, the very first piece that we hear in the show, which we're going to start in about 7 minutes, is called Araro. And I believe that's a piece that you created, you've composed, and it's beautiful. And you sing on this one, so there's lyrics as well. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about that piece, either what it's about or what it means to you.
Uh, so araro means it's a term for lullaby they use in a language called Tamil in India, spelled Tamil in English. It's from the south of India, and so it's a lullaby. But basically, I wrote this as a lullaby for my own mind in some ways, because everybody they sing lullabies to babies, but sometimes your own mind can be like a child, and it burns for things or it longs for things. So it's all about the mind, um, uh, kind of yearning for this being in a distant land and yearning for something that is coming from the origins. It could be a spiritual way of looking at it, from a divine godly sense, where humans being torn away from something that's truthful or meaningful in a very deep way, but also maybe from being an immigrant, or being torn apart from your roots and being put into something else, whether it's of your own choice or whether it's of someone else's choice. So it's a very deep song in that way, and it's just saying, don't worry. Raro means go to sleep, Just don't worry, because tomorrow the flowers are going to bloom, and um, life is going to go on, and things will be beautiful. So just sleep, my dear loved one. That
Wow.
basically, and it's in the and the interesting thing is that it's in the time structure or tradition of Solea. Uh, um, Solea is a style in flamenco, which is in 12-beat cycle. So I wrote that in that style, and it fits so well with some of these Indian technicalities. And you'll hear the Indian and the flamenco coming together, but you also hear a certain Arabic tone, because I'm actually playing an oud in that. So it's a mixture of all these things, coming together. As I said, flamenco is very interesting in the roots of the music. So
Oliver, I have to point out in sort of throughout Araro and this whole performance that we'll hear, there is this Carnatic violinist named Sruti Sarati, if I remember correctly, and she is making these amazing kind of swooping sounds on a violin that was kind of the first time I'd heard anything quite like that. And it's running throughout. Can you say maybe just a word or two about her and kind of or about that kind of style of violin playing?
yeah, so Shruti, just amazing violinist, and she adds that emotion, that real, that kind of very Indian emotion to that music, and really brings out the Indianness in that song with her playing. And and she's playing a style called Carnatic. So there's two styles. There's the Hindustani, which is from the north of India, and then there's the Carnatic, which is from the south of India. And the two are different in certain ways, but a lot similar as well. One of the main differences is that the northern regions got invaded or taken over by the Islamic invasion, so certain things changed them musically, food-wise, dress-wise, and all that. While the southern regions maintain their own old ancient traditions, Hindu traditions, and so forth. So uh, Carnatic music is very, it's a classical art form. So what she's playing is classical Indian, not folk style, which people should also know about, because there's a huge difference between folk and classical. Um, Although I'm singing and playing this music not in a classical style necessarily, I'm kind of blending so many different things in here, folk as well. But she's really bringing out, her playing in it is classical, but you hear also the very folk stuff of the music.
What a world, Oliver, and what a treat that you've brought all of those elements together into something that we can experience. Last question. We've got just about 2 minutes left before we're going to start the show itself. So this thing ends with some crazy, to me, crazy drumming, and you're doing the drumming. Actually, some other folks are too, but you're in the front. Can you just tell us a little bit about, I don't know, either the drum itself or what goes on in Oliver Rajamani's mind when you go? You seem to just go away, man, while you're doing that. You seem to be in another world.
Yeah. Well, drumming is it's kind of like my primary instrument in many ways, and I've grew up as a drummer as a little boy, and so that solo I'm doing there, it's very interesting. That my whole life, in many ways, as well as my musicality, are so, it's not something I just kind of woke up one morning and just said, okay, you know what, I'm going to create something, put these music. My whole life has been a weird mixture of cultures, and where I've lived with people, and so that drum solo, I'm actually playing a Middle Eastern drum called the darbuka. They call it the dumbek as well. But the techniques I'm using are completely Indian. Um, so it's like really a mixture. It's really my own thing. I'm just kind of doing. So it's a mixture of all these traditions coming together rhythmically as well. And as far as your question of where I go, I don't know if I go anywhere. I think my mind just becomes still, and I think that I do experience that stillness when I'm drumming. For Definitely, for sure, because my mind stops thinking. Basically, that's all I can say. I don't even know. It's a beautiful place I go to. It's very like it's like I feel it in my gut. That's how I can, it's that feeling. It's like that sureness of, when you're going to take a step, you're not thinking, you're just doing it because it's just that.
Wow, wow, Oliver. Well, and you take us somewhere too, and maybe you take us when we get a glimpse of that place as well. When you go there, and it's amazing that you share it with us. Okay, I think it's about time to watch this show. Don't forget that as you're watching the show, it's about 27 minutes long. That you can be thinking of questions either from what Oliver was just talking about or things that occur to you as you're watching the show. And we'll come back afterward and we'll have a chance to kind of talk through some of your comments and some of your questions. Oliver, thank you so much. I can't wait to watch this show again with you. And let's go ahead and take it away.
Support for this program made possible by the Kodosky Foundation.
So Flamenco India is a innovative musical journey into the Indian roots of Spain's Gypsy flamenco. So flamenco is actually a fusion of cultures and musical styles which happened in south of Spain, starting in the late 14th century when the Romani people arrived from India. Now the Romani people are known commonly as gypsies, and that term gypsy came about because when the Romani people arrived in Europe, the Europeans didn't know who they were. So Flamenco India really is innovative project for me, and it's a project that connects me not just to Romani people in Europe or Spain, but also all the way back to India. We want to bring awareness to the general public all around the world, internationally, on who the Romani people are and the roots of flamenco music.
Realmente se llama Flamenco India tan natural porque yo soy flamenco y Oliver es indio, es hindú. Entonces pienso yo que eso es algo muy natural, es juntar esas dos fuentes y realmente llamarlas como son, Flamenco India, que realmente es de donde pertenecemos cada uno.
பார்க்கதான் ஒரு வருஷமானதா பாலைவன சொப்பனங்கள் நான் தன்றே So eventually we somehow got in touch online, and I told him about this project I'm working on, and you know, I actually wasn't sure if he'd say yes or not, you know.
Oliver se puso en contacto conmigo en Madrid, España, y vino a verme allí. Y se interesó mucho por la música que yo estaba haciendo. Y la verdad fue una experiencia increíble y una conexión única, porque fue reencontrarme con mi origen. Y la verdad fue una simbiosis fantástica. Funcionó automáticamente. La verdad que cuando las cosas funcionan con ese brío, con esa fuerza, con ese brillo, la verdad que ha sido una experiencia y está siendo una experiencia única, increíble.
He's a very deep person. He thinks very deeply, but he has a certain side to him which is very kind of joyful and innocent in some way, and I feel like that's the place where we connect.
La música para mí es la vida. Trabajé profesionalmente a los 5 años y realmente hasta ahora no recuerdo de haber dejado la guitarra 10 días seguidos. Entonces, realmente la música para mí es la forma de conexión que yo tengo con los elementos que no se ven, que realmente son más certeros que los que se ven, como el amor, la ternura, también la pasión, el fuego. Es una forma de hacer conocer a las personas mi forma de ser a través de la guitarra. me monto en un aeroplano que a dónde vine yo a parar a un corro de gitano. Que a dónde vine yo a parar a un corro de gitano.
It's just something which has naturally happened for me. It's not something I woke up one morning and said, oh, I'm going to create Flamenco India, or become a musician for that matter. I've been on stage since I was 5, and it's been just a natural ongoing process of just learning from different, whether it's musicians or learning just from life itself. As a little kid, my uncle had a band and I would play, he would take me on stage and just kind of put me somewhere to, play a drum or something. So really it starts with family. When I was back home, I visited my parents about 2 years ago, and I was sitting there playing my oud, and my mom came into the room and she asked me, she said, so where does all this come from? Where do these melodies and compositions come from for you? And I said, I don't really know. I have no clue. It just happens, And she said, well, I know. And I said, you do? And she said, well, I also have that within me. And so I guess what she was saying is that, it comes from deep within. I don't know, it's a genetic thing or a very deep spiritual thing or whatever it is. It's definitely something I'm not thinking about and doing. It's not something I've got a certain approach to it or anything, it's always just been there. I don't even know how to explain that. It's just part of my life. It's become my life. You're not going to find this music in India or Spain. It's not just about some sort of entertainment. It's to help people find that liberation within themselves, because freedom at the end is not anything outside of us. Ultimately, it's coming from within us.
Que realmente somos muy parecidos, no solamente el ser humano, el corazón, palpitamos con un mismo sentimiento, que es el de querer aprender. Y cuando el pálpito del corazón es el mismo, en un mismo pensar y en un mismo sentir, después creo que la magia la recibe el público. Esa magia que antes hemos estado en casa riéndonos, jugando, tocando juntos, pasándonoslo bien, mirando los cortes. Todo eso después pienso yo que es una energía que el público la recoge.
Support for this program made possible by the Kodosky Foundation.
Oh my goodness, what a joy it is to hear that show again, to see that magic happening again, and to get to share it with you. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching that with us. And now is our big chance to talk to Oliver, who really created this entire vision and brought all these wonderful musicians together for us. And to ask him some questions if you want to, or give him some feedback, some of your kind comments that I know you've got from watching that incredible performance that he just gave. And I want to say again, that was a performance exactly 1 year ago today. It was Sunday, April 7th, 2019 at the original ACL television recording studio, which is Studio 6A at KLRU, which is now actually going away because KLRU is moving to a new location off the UT campus. So this is one of the last live shows ever to happen in that TV studio. And what a treat to get to have this show and to get to share it with you and to get to talk to Oliver Rajamani and reflect on this experience just a little bit. Oliver, you ready to answer a question or two?
Sure.
Joe, did anybody ask us anything on the I'm talking to Joe Williams, our artistic director at Austin Classical Guitar. What are people saying out there, Joe?
Well, it's pretty awesome to read the comments. There's so many hearts and so much love. I particularly loved Varun's comment that says, reliving the moment. It was so awesome in person as well. And so a lot of shout outs, and Inspiración del Mar says beautiful and big hearts. We'll give them some more time to ask some questions. Actually, we've got our first question here from in Texas. Are there any plans for another set of live shows, Oliver?
Yes, of course. definitely looking, once this whole coronavirus and all that is kind of taken care of and everything, there's definitely going to be some amazing shows we're looking at. And when the time is ready, we'll, when it's there, we'll let you know.
Hey, Oliver, can we tease our little plan for the fall a little tiny bit? I mean, we haven't announced it yet, and we don't have to tell the date or anything, but it's an exciting vision, and we've talked about collaborating on a new show in October. So maybe you can tell us just a little bit about that vision.
Yeah. So in October, working on a show, Gypsy Raga, and Gypsy Raga is going to feature some of the best Romani or Gypsy artists from Russia and Eastern Europe, and as well as Indian artists. And I mean, just beautiful, beautiful show, colorful, passionate, like Romani music is. But one of the cool things is that in the show, people will get to hear the 7-string Romani Gypsy Russian guitar, which is played by a master artist, Vadim Kolpakov. He's from a well-known family in Russia, who's traveled a lot all over the world. He actually toured with Madonna for 3 years, and she was very interested in trying to promote, Romani culture and music and so forth. She had done an album, so.
And we're working on getting Madonna in for the show, but she hasn't gotten back to us yet. So we'll keep working on that angle.
Yeah.
I'm joking, I realize, but okay. But that is very exciting. And Anne, thank you for asking that question. So Oliver, of course, has lots of other things going on, but we're excited that we get to orbit together again in the fall, assuming that things are back to the way we hope they're going to be, and we can do some live shows certainly by that point.
We have another question here from Jeff Streber. He says, how much is written out and how much is improvised? Perhaps similar to jazz, where the melody and changes are written out, but then each player takes turns soloing. And that was mind-blowing. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that question. Well, Indian music and Romani music, or flamenco for that matter, is a lot of it is comes from the improving traditions. And I mean, probably now a lot of flamenco compositions are written out for people so they can learn them and play them, but the tradition comes from improvisation. And in in the stuff I do, there's if you see the string section, there are parts where the strings are playing, which is very much written out. But then there are other parts where Jerónimo's improving, or I'm improving. So there's a mixture of both here. So, there's the improv part of it, but there's parts in this show which which is not what wasn't broadcast, where Jerónimo and I and Shruti, the violin player, played trio, which was all pretty much 90% improvisation with a kind of simple structure, which is really going back to the very roots of what flamenco, for example, comes from, or Indian folk music and all that. But what you saw, as far as whenever you see the orchestra, there's a lot of those sections are kind of structured.
Something else I'd like to, as you're talking about things that were not in this show that we just watched, something else that was not in this show were the two marvelous dancers that you brought us for this particular production. Laboni Mohanta, who was such a spectacular presence, and Daniel Caballero, who was just an extraordinary flamenco dancer. And casting ahead, I believe you're thinking about maybe some dancers for the show in October as well. And it's just in 27 minutes we got this extraordinary feature. But those elements are often present in the shows that you imagine into existence, Oliver.
Yeah, unfortunately we couldn't get the dancers in this broadcast, but which was amazing, because people can really see where that flamenco dance comes from, especially when you put the Indian dancer next to these flamenco dancer. Um, but yeah, in the show in October, that's going to be a different tradition. You're going to see Russian Romani dance with Indian dance, which is also very similar. You'd be amazed, and how they move and so forth. And but one of the interesting things in my flamenco India creation is that one of the things is that I'm trying not to, as much as I'm trying to show a certain history and similarity, my goal is not completely that. It's more of an innovative process that I'm going towards, which is, because all of music really is always evolving, always changing, and people are always going back and bringing things and trying to show things to you, but it's still always changing and it's always going to change. And I just feel that I'm just a process of that change. So it's like, so what the Flamenco India is more of a innovative, experience or journey. It has a certain, how do you say, a side to it where, we're talking historically and saying, okay, well, flamenco comes from here and there and there, but the reality is of what is happening now and where it's going to go. So that's what Flamenco India is all about, even though it carries the roots along with it. So
beautiful.
I'd love to share another comment. We have one from Anne C, which said, so enjoyable to listen to the music I would normally not be aware of. Thank you for widening my horizons in this time of limited horizons. Please have another event. And Jaime Ibarra asks, where can one hear more of Shruti's music? And I would add, where can we hear more of your music, Oliver?
Well, for Shruti's music, not quite sure where you can hear her music, but I'm sure she's on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube these days. And she is always touring and playing with various amazing artists. So you can check her out. She has a website. I'm not sure. I think it's shruti.com or something like that. I'm not sure, but check her out. Google her. And then as far as where my music is, you can go to cdbaby.com, cdbaby.com, and you will see all my CDs. You'll also see the Flamenco India CD, which you can either purchase as an album or song by song. So that's the best place really to get that music. And then there's videos and stuff like that on YouTube. And if you go to oliverrajamani.com, my website, you can be guided to all these different places. But one of the best places really to see this music is for you to be at these live shows, because it's completely different. Because this music is not, as much as we record this music and so forth, it really doesn't bring out the real essence of, the feeling of it. There's so much taken out. It's kind of like, what you really hear in a CD is kind of like refined sugar, and when it's like, or you take out a lot of ingredients and then you have refined sugar. So it's like, it's sweet and everything, but when you hear and experience something live, you're really getting everything, especially for something music like this, Romani music and things, or any music for that matter, it's just, I truly believe their live experience is so crucial.
We'll just have to get out there and make some more of those, Oliver, as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, definitely.
That's beautiful. And Sruti's name is spelled Sruti. Last name is Sarathy, I believe. And so if you're trying to Google her or find her on YouTube, then that's the spelling. Joe might even tap it into the chat there for us if you can there, John, if you can. Got it. Okay. Well, is anybody saying anything else, Joe? We're coming up on the 8 o'clock witching hour here.
Yeah, let's just share a question. Actually, here we go. This is from George Brown. Just a big thank you for the great show. I learned so much in the overview before the show, and then the music was so exciting. And Lorraine Lasden asked, have you played with the Silk Road Ensemble? And I would add, is there any kind of sympathetic things that you see there that you've drawn inspiration from or that you've expanded upon yourself?
No, I haven't played with the Silk Road, but it's an amazing, production and a concept. And again, just like Flamenco India, the Silk Road is a historical reality, and it's not just some, you know, thing that came out of the blue. And so that's saying that it's very similar. It's a journey again. My journey is Flamenco India is the Romani Trail. It's called. It stretches from India into Europe. The Silk Road kind of touches on India with the spices and all that, and goes into Europe as well, coming from far east. And yeah, they're both very similar in this journey of people and culture and foods and music and everything that travels from one end of the world to the other, and the richness it creates for future generations to come, that they can draw upon. And that's that journey, as much as it may be in a physical manifestation when it's happening, is kind of carried on in a spiritual way, also, because, as you know, which is one of the main things in Flamenco India for me, is that it's a if you want to say spiritual, because sometimes that term is so overused now, but like that spiritual, it's like a spiritual journey in many ways, not just of talking about Roma, but every human being is traveling in their own way. They're an immigrant, in some ways, traveling through this life, or maybe many lifetimes, if you believe in that. And yet we haven't moved a single inch. We've always been here. And so, I mean, part of that experience of Flamenco India is that it goes beyond cultures and boundaries and everything, but it's always just been here in its own way, whether it's music or foods or whatever it is, culture or people, and so that essence of just always being here is yet always moving as well. It's almost like a like our mind plays games of illusions sometimes, but we've always been here, but we are also moving at the same time. So it's just one of those things, so that Flamenco India is part of that. And I think Silk Road is kind of creates that same feeling in the story.
That is so inspiring, Oliver. I'm going to spend some time thinking about that tonight. And we're so grateful to you for spending your evening with us. We're so grateful to you out there for sharing this wonderful experience with us, and for sharing your questions and your comments. Tell your friends, this actually, at this same YouTube link, is going to stay active, and once YouTube does its little magic processing, it'll be available for others to watch. So feel free to, if you enjoyed this experience and you would like to share it with others, you can send the YouTube link itself on for other people to watch. The link itself will not change. We are going to be back here. Our plan is every single Tuesday this month, in the month of April, we're going to be doing watch parties of various kinds and digging a little bit deeper into some various aspects of musical performances and programs that we have been part of over the years, and cannot wait to share and also provide a little behind the scenes insights into. So follow our newsletter or follow us on social media. We'll be announcing those as those plans are solidified, but we're looking at every Tuesday at 7 o'clock for our watch parties. and of course we've got some online shows coming up, and then listening experiences as well at austinclassicalguitar.org, where if you enjoyed tonight's experience and you'd like to support our music and musicians and services, check out that website, austinclassicalguitar.org. Look for the little heart that we have there on the front page if you'd like to support the work that we do. And thank you for joining us. Oliver, I'd like to throw it back over to you to say thanks one more time to you.
Yeah, thank you, all of you, for joining and taking this time to join into this beautiful broadcast. And thank you, Matt, and everybody else, Joe, and Austin Classical Guitar Society, for making this happen. You guys are great.
It's always such a pleasure to get to see you. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Eric Pearson, Jess Griggs, Karen Gallant, and the whole team at Austin Classical Guitar. We will look forward to seeing you next time. Do be safe, take care of yourselves, and keep smiling.